Hi everyone, I just wanted to put together a short video that gives some tips on what to do when you're buying a second-hand bike. I own a small bike business and unfortunately the majority of customers that come through that have bought a second-hand bike have bought a bike that's worn out and should really be thrown away. So I've been having a bit of a think of what to do, and I've decided to create this video to give you some suggestions on what to look out for when you're buying a bike. Now, the first thing is, before you actually go out and actually have a look at the bike, I'd be aiming to get a bike that is in really good condition, that's been purchased by somebody, ridden once or twice, and then put away into storage, and then they've realised that they're not interested in cycling and they're selling it off after a couple of years. I'd avoid buying a really cheap bike that's rusty, that's old, and that looks worn out. Totally stay away from those types of bikes. So that's my first tip. Even before you actually go and look at the bike, try to be smart about what you want to buy and buy something that's in pretty good nick. Now, once you actually go out and actually starting to look at the bikes, there's a couple of different tests that I do to get an idea of the quality of the bike or how worn out it is. And the first one I do is a chain check, and I check the wear of the chain. You need a special tool for this. You can go off and buy them, they're about $20. I have this particular tool that I'm going to reach over and grab. It's a Park tool, chain checker. Basically when a chain wears, it gets longer. And this is a tool that you pop onto the chain, and if it falls through the chain, it highlights that it's worn. And a worn chain is a red flag to stay away from it, because if the chain's worn, there's probably lots of other parts that are worn as well. So for me, I've done this test. I've popped it into the chain, and this chain's incredibly worn. So it needs a new chain and needs a new rear cassette or cogs. So in addition to the basic service charge, you're already up for a new chain and a new cassette and cogs. So that's the first thing of one of many things that is wrong with this particular bike that came in yesterday. So once I've done the chain check, I've already got a good idea that this is probably a stay away bike. The next thing I do is check the bearings. There's a number of bearings within the bike. You've got your bearings in the wheels. You've got these bottom bracket bearings, which are the bearings that go around the axle that goes in between the bike, that the pedal cranks connect to. And then you've got your bearings in the forks here, and that controls the steering. So to check the bearings, for me personally, normally people would think that you'd spin the wheel around. You can check them that way, but the real check is to actually grab the wheel and push it and pull it. So push it towards the camera and pull it back, and there shouldn't be any movement. This bike, the one thing that probably is in its favour is that the wheel bearings are in good condition, both front and back, so there's no movement there. Even a slight bit of movement you find means that there's wear. The same principle is applied to these pedal cranks, and you grab the end of the crank and you push and pull both cranks. Grab the top of it, push and pull. Now I don't know if you can hear this, but this has got a massive amount of movement in the bottom bearings, so this bottom bracket will need to be replaced. One of many things that will need to be replaced. The final bearings and the forks here, the headset bearings, and basically I'll just rotate them from side to side, and I can just feel in the frame that it's grinding away. And another thing it does is it actually, I don't know if you can see this, but actually the bars centre itself on the frame because they're that worn. They've actually worn holes into the bearings, and it actually stops into the middle of the frame there. So those bearings we need to replace. So that's a quick check of the bearings. A big red flag to stay away from this particular bike. The next thing I will do is I'll look at the wheels. I know we've done the wheel bearing checks, but I'll actually look at the wheels. I'll actually spin the wheels and I'll look down the wheel, and I can see that this has got a massive buckle in it, and so this will need a new wheel as well. Not a simple buckle that could be trued, it actually needs to be replaced. And the other thing I'll do is I'll actually check the tension of the spokes. I'll squeeze the spokes and I'll feel if there's any loose ones or broken ones. This one doesn't have those, but it's got a lot of other problems. And the final thing to do on the wheels is I'll check that the front and the back wheel are the same brand. I can see this particular bike has different wheels. So they've either worn or had an accident on one of the wheels, probably the rear wheel, and they've replaced it. So that's a bit of a red flag as well. So that's some of the checks you can do. Then I move on to the gears and the braking system. So run through all the gears and see if they change nicely. Firstly on the back, look at the back. This one changes incredibly bad, so there's problems there. And I've noticed on the front derailleur, this has got 3 chain rings on the front, or 3 speeds on the front. This only moves up to the second chain ring, and it doesn't go onto the big chain ring. It just doesn't work, so there's a problem there that needs fixed. I've also inspected the cables, and I can see the cables have actually, the plastic's worn off the outside, and I can see the wire on the inside, so all the cables need to be replaced as well. And then finally, we go on to the brakes. Brakes, we look at the pads and we can see the wear. Pads have lines on them normally. If you've got a traditional rim brake, if you've got a disc brake, that's a bit different. You go by the pad thickness. But on a traditional rim brake, the pads will have grooves in them, and they're a bit of an indicator to show how much wear. If those grooves are not very deep, they need to be replaced. On this particular bike, the brakes are incredibly worn, and that will need to be replaced as well. So we've got a number of different things that are on here. And the final thing I'd be doing is actually going for a ride. Go for a ride, test the brakes, go on and off, check all the gears as well. Just see how it handles. This particular bike has got a huge amount of faults with. I think it was purchased for around $200, and it's probably got, and that's Aussie dollars I should say, and it's probably got about $500 worth of repairs to it. So it's really a throwaway job, or if you're lucky enough to track down the seller, I'd be going back and trying to get a refund on that money and look for something a bit better. So I hope you've enjoyed those couple of quick tips to look out for. Be very careful. There are a lot of people selling bikes that really shouldn't be sold. But hopefully these tips can help you sort of weed out those bad bikes and find a really nice bike that you can go off and ride. Hope you enjoyed the video, and thank you for watching. See you later.